Praise be Jesus Christ, and thank you for joining me for the adult formation update for the week of July 12th. The feast I want to focus on is on July 16th, which is the feast of Our Lady of Mount Carmel. Sometimes people say Carmel, but this is a great feast, and I want to give you a little bit of the history. So Mount Carmel is in the Holy Land, and this is the famous mountain in which the prophet Elijah had a contest against the false prophets of Baal. And this was a contest in which there were very few faithful people in Israel at the time. Elijah actually thought he was the only one that was left. God had assured him that there was a remnant, a small remnant of faithful, but it did not look hopeful. So Elijah, wanting to prove that he served the one true God, the God of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and Joseph, and that the people, the Israelites, had fallen away into false worship, he wanted to prove that there was the one true God. And so he built two altars. The prophets of Baal had their sacrifice on their altar, and he had his sacrifice on his altar. He let them go first. They called upon their false gods, which are demons, and nothing happened. He taunted them and said, "What is your gods? Are your gods sleeping? You know, da da da." And finally, then he added water onto his sacrifice, and just to prove that God could still light this sacrifice on fire and consume it completely. And that's indeed what happened. He called upon the one true God. The sacrifice was completely burnt up. The water all around the altar was evaporated, and he had won. But this did not impress people. What had happened instead is the king and queen chased him basically out. He had to flee for his life. But all of that took place on Mount Carmel. And so it's a very sacred site in which God had worked a miracle, of course, proving to everyone that he is the true God. It was in the 12th century, so this is the 12th century after, of course, Christ's passion, death, and resurrection, that hermits had come from Europe to settle in that area and to live a monastic life on that mountain. And this is where we get the tradition of the Carmelite Order. So the Carmelites are a very prayerful order, a very contemplative order. They have both nuns and hermits. Some famous Carmelites that you probably know is probably the most famous is Saint Therese, also Saint Teresa of Avila, and John of the Cross are some of the most famous Carmelites. In the 1300s, in the 13th century, during the Crusades, because of Islam and because of the danger in the area, those hermits actually had to go back to Europe. And so this is when we start seeing the Carmelite orders kind of grow all the way through, all through Europe. And one of the most famous Carmelites in the early days was Saint Simon Stock. He actually had Mary appear to him. Mary appeared to him in a vision and gave him what we call the brown scapular. This was a piece of cloth that was large and was hung over the neck. It's kind of like a poncho, or not a poncho, but I guess a poncho, where there's a flap in the front and then a hole for your head and then a flap in the back. And this is what the Carmelites wore. And she assured the Carmelites of her protection for those that wore that scapular, those that practiced chastity according to their state in life, and those that prayed the rosary. And so this devotion came. Lay people have the opportunity to wear a small version of the brown scapular. It usually is a little square about this size that you wear in the front, and another square in the back, and then there's a short string that holds it together. And this is like a yoke, like Jesus says, "Put on my yoke," right? My yoke is easy and light. And so, again, we wear the scapular continually. We would practice chastity, purity in our state in life, and then pray the rosary daily. So, beautiful devotion. Please check that out, the brown scapular, if you're not familiar with it, but it ties in with Our Lady of Mount Carmel on July 16th. Join us this week. We will be having the Good Life on July 13th at 6 p.m. We do meet in person, but also online via Zoom. So just look for those links on the website. You can go to the Adult Formation, Adult Formation Online page and get that information, and also have it emailed to you. And then RCIA will meet on July 14th at 7 p.m. And again, that is also in person, but also a hybrid. So we will be having our intensive 1 and 2 RCIA classes. So if you're interested in becoming Catholic, interested in being baptized, or just want to learn more about the faith, we're hoping everyone can catch up on our RCIA classes by mid-September. In order to do that, join us for our intensive 1 or intensive 2. The dates for the intensive 1 are July 28th through August 11th. It's Tuesday nights. We'll be doing 3 lessons a night for 3 weeks straight. And then the intensive 2 is just a repeat, and that's August 18th through September 1st. Again, every Tuesday night for 3 weeks, and we'll cover 3 lessons every Tuesday night, and those are from 6 to 9 o'clock. Again, that starts on July 28th. So please join us this week. Again, The Good Life on the 13th at 6 p.m., RCIA on the 14th at 7 p.m., and we do have some videos from last week, so if you'll please check out those. The video for The Good Life can be found right here, just click there, and the video for RCIA, and our topic was on the nature of the church, who, what, and why. That can be found right here. Have a great week in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.